Hi everyone, I am Ken Tolke. I am the Chief Scientific Officer at PRA Health Sciences, coming to you from month 8 in my home office post-COVID. I wanted to say that PRA is thrilled to be a part of the Xconomy Awards and to be able to support the Breakthrough Drug of the Year Award. In addition to that, what I'd like to do is invite you all to enjoy this installment of Meet the Finalists. And join us all at the virtual Xconomy Awards on September 24th, where PRA is honored to be able to announce the winner of the Deal of the Year Award. See you all then.
It is a first-in-class erythroid maturation agent that was developed to treat anemia related to blood disorders that are associated with ineffective erythropoiesis. Now, Reblozyl has a very unique mechanism of action because it signals a pathway whose overactivity can disrupt the body's normal red blood cell production of the cells. And so by blocking this pathway, it allows for the erythroids, or commonly known as red blood cells, to mature, and by doing so, it allows the red blood cells to sort of do its job, and it eliminates the resulting anemia if this problem is not corrected. So recently, FDA approved Reblozyl for 2 different indications. One, to treat a rare disorder which is known as beta thalassemia. It's rare in the United States, in patients who need regular red blood cell transfusions in the adult population. And it also approved Reblozyl for another hematologic malignancy known as myelodysplastic syndromes, particularly in patients who had ring sideroblasts and require red blood cell transfusions and are ineligible for an erythropoiesis stimulating agent. So you got 2 indications. And it's important to note that these are in this very ineffective erythropoiesis diseases. Now, whilst we are happy with that, also sometimes products and medicines are risk-benefit ratios, right? And so we have certain side effects that people should be aware of, such as increasing some form of blood clots, whether they are in veins or arteries or lungs, as well as causing high blood pressure. Now, these are not all the side effects that Reblozyl can cause. So whenever anyone is considering their medicines, it's best for them to speak to their physician to determine whether such a new treatment is actually indicative for them. And so we are very happy with the science as to how this development has come forward and the uniqueness of the product. And then with our collaboration with BMS, I'd love Shane to add to some more color commentary about Reblozyl.
So thank you, Sujay. I think, again, as to some of the points that Sujay pointed out, to me, the key word is innovation here with Reblozyl and how he's described Reblozyl's mechanism of action. It is a new class, first-in-class medication that really truly addresses the underlying issues associated with some of these myeloid diseases like beta thalassemia and MDS, which is anemia. And when you look at the fact that Reblozyl is a drug that works in the late stage of erythropoiesis, it allows these red blood cells to differentiate and fully mature. And to me, I think that is a unique approach. And prior to Reblozyl's approval, it's been well over a decade since a drug was approved in MDS. So it's still a disease where there's a significant unmet need. And in terms of beta thalassemia, there was no other drug approved. And so I think you take the innovation, the science associated with what we see with Reblozyl, the unmet need associated with MDS and beta thalassemia, and then combining the 2 companies, both with Acceleron and BMS, we've been able to effectively commercialize the asset and provide the values associated with the drug for patients. And we're already seeing significant benefit and success stories with Reblozyl.
To think about what Shane just said, it takes a lot of vision, it takes a lot of tenacity, it takes a lot of innovation. And the Acceleron scientist way back when, almost a decade ago, as Shane was saying, had the foresight and the vision to say, you know what, we're going to investigate this pathway of TGF-beta superfamily of biology and really understand the impact of this SMAD2/3 signaling and how it affects the body's natural production of red blood cells. And then through that, they were able to spend years in trying to really fine-tune it and then help develop this medicine, which now today, through this innovation, we are providing new hope for these patients, for these diseases, which are impaired erythroid defective diseases, right? So that is the aspect, and all of it ultimately is for what? It is for providing hope for patients, for the caregivers who are taking care of these patients, and the family members who also are caring for the loved ones, right? And that improvement of having that hope after almost 10 years, something revived, something new, is of critical importance for a breakthrough designation, so to speak.
Yeah, and I echo that. So you mentioned the word, and you say the word breakthrough. To me, that means to go beyond the norm, to challenge the status quo. And we've talked about that in Sujay's points, and I've highlighted the innovation piece. So that's one key component. The second key component to me is challenging the status quo, disrupting the existing treatment paradigm that exists in MDS. Prior to Reblozyl, patients got red blood cell transfusions, or they progressed to receive active therapy, which may or may not control their disease, and there are side effects which are associated. Not to say that Reblozyl doesn't have side effects, Sujay's pointed those out, but Reblozyl affords patients the opportunity to transition effectively and potentially can reduce the transfusion burden which is associated with MDS. And so that's challenging the status quo. That's a breakthrough when you're disrupting the treatment paradigm. And then one tidbit which I think is very interesting, and it's unfortunate in some respects, we know that there are constraints on blood supply, and in light of COVID-19, we know that there have been significant guidance associated with ensuring that we're preserving blood supply in the right way. And the fact that we're bringing an innovative drug to the market to address anemia and beta thalassemia and MDS, I think optimizes the blood supply situation, particularly in light of COVID-19 and where we are today. So it wasn't intentional, but again, it's a value and a benefit which I think is helping healthcare providers and patients at this point in time.
Our nomination is around Palforzia, which is for the treatment of peanut allergy. Peanut allergy is one of the most common food allergies worldwide, and it affects about 1.6 million children and teenagers in the US. It's a chronic lifelong condition in many cases. With most children, about 80% of cases, it persists into adulthood. So the reactions can be life-threatening, and about 1 in 5 kids that have peanut allergy end up in the emergency room in any given year. And until this year, there was no approved treatment option, and Palforzia represents not just the first approved FDA-approved treatment option for peanut allergy, but the first FDA-approved option for any food allergy. It's an oral immunotherapy, and it's administered to patients in precise doses over a period of time, during which they're desensitized to the allergen. So we're essentially reprogramming the immune system. This category really celebrates innovation and advancements in drug development. And I would argue that bringing a new medicine to market is one of the most complicated and innovative things that we do as a society in general. Several years ago, a colleague said to me that the art of drug development is making a series of very complicated decisions around several plausible and reasonable alternative paths forward. And I think it's because those paths forward are usually reasonable and plausible that it's such a difficult thing to do. And when good science comes together with good decision making, that's when the magic happens. And if you consider today, it's 2020. The COVID pandemic is upon us, and many companies across our industry are working feverishly on vaccines. And we've made incredible advancements in medicine over the last few decades. We're able to cure certain types of cancers. We're able to eradicate certain diseases from the planet completely. And yet, it is also 2020 is the first year that we've been able to get any treatment for any food allergy approved. And so we think that Palforzia fits very nicely in this category and fits very much within the spirit of constantly bringing innovation to market and the advancement of drug development. Food allergies can dominate the lives of patients and their families that are living with the threat of life-threatening anaphylaxis day in, day out, every day. In many cases, these families take actions which completely disrupt their lives. They don't get on airplanes, they don't take public transport, they don't go out to eat at restaurants. And so Palforzia represents a chance for them to get their lives back. And as the first approved option for these patients, it really is a chance for them to take back control and, as much as anything, to allow their children to just become normal kids again.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm very excited about what GBT has done. I think you know that sickle cell has been a disease that's been around for a long time, over 100 years, but we've made very little progress in this disease. I came to GBT because it was a company that said these patients deserve better, and we have a very important, innovative idea about how to approach the disease. So Oxbryta, the therapy that we made that was approved last year, in November of last year, actually stops the hemoglobin from polymerizing. That's the problem in sickle cell disease. The hemoglobin organizes into rods, and that forms the cells to make them look sickled because they've got rods inside of them. That also destroys the cell, and it creates an anemia that ultimately kills the patient. So going after the polymerization or the sickling of the hemoglobin is a huge innovation that we think is going to be a complete game changer for these patients. I think breakthroughs in general are things which are catalytic. They fundamentally represent you're going after this differently than anybody who's ever done it before. In sickle cell disease, we have focused on primarily one symptom, and that is the pain episodes. And while those are terrible, not all patients have pain episodes, but these patients are still dying in their 30s and 40s. So that tells you that pain is not the fundamental issue. Sickle hemoglobin is the fundamental issue. So our breakthrough is that we went beyond approaching this the traditional way, and we approached it from the most fundamental and most powerful scientific way. It is really the first breakthrough therapy that's ever been approved for sickle cell therapy. There were 2 drugs approved last year, our drug and a drug from Novartis, that again focuses on the pain. It focuses on the occlusions that you can get into vessels. And all the other drugs, and there haven't been many, the 2 other drugs that were approved for sickle cell all focus on the pain. So our drug really is a breakthrough in that it's going beyond the pain and it's trying to fundamentally treat the disease. The analogy would be trying to focus on the complications of HIV, the pneumocystis carinii, the Kaposi sarcoma, as opposed to killing the virus. If you kill the virus, these other problems go away. But if you focus on those complications, you will never solve the fundamental problem.
So why do you think you should win?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we've already won. I think we got into this for the patient, and we are going to help the patient. So in my view, we've already won what we really want to win, which is the victory for the patient. In terms of why this could be important, I think it would acknowledge that this is a breakthrough for one of the most egregiously disaffected populations in the world. In the United States, this is 95% a disease of African Americans. The majority of these patients are on Medicaid. With all the issues going on around this country, about our history of not really looking after everyone fairly. So this would be an opportunity to recognize saying someone who's focused on a problem for these people, not only in the US, but globally, given how much they've ignored, really is something that needs to be acknowledged. But I would go back and say our victory was really making this breakthrough for the patient.
Hi there. Vertex Pharmaceuticals is unable to be here to talk about its nomination in the Breakthrough Drug of the Year award, Trikafta, but you have the next best thing, myself, Dan Stanton, the managing editor of Xconomy. Now, Trikafta was approved for those 12 years and older by the US FDA in October 2019. And according to Vertex itself, it marked the start of a new era in cystic fibrosis, offering a treatment for the underlying cause of the disease. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder that affects more than 70,000 people worldwide, according to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It's caused by mutations to the gene that produces a protein called CFTR, which helps pump water in and out of cells. Now, without enough of that protein, the lungs, pancreas, and other organs develop a buildup of thick mucus that can in turn lead to breathing problems and bacterial infections. For years, the only available cystic fibrosis treatments helped regulate the symptoms and didn't actually address the cause of the disease. Vertex changed that, starting with the approval of ivacaftor, also known as Kalydeco. In 2012, this was the first drug to address the molecular malfunction that underlies the disease. But ivacaftor only treated roughly 5% of the genetic subset of cystic fibrosis patients. Vertex has been steadily broadening the reach of its cystic fibrosis franchise by combining ivacaftor with other drugs it has developed. And since 2015, the company has been cleared to sell 2 cystic fibrosis drug combinations, so ivacaftor and lumacaftor together under the brand name Orkambi, and ivacaftor and tezacaftor under the brand name Symdeko. Up until late last year, Vertex could treat approximately 40% of cystic fibrosis patients. However, Trikafta, once approved, changed all this via its free drug regimen. The product combines the existing 2 molecules in Symdeko with elexacaftor, an experimental one, and was approved for about 90% of cystic fibrosis patients, many of whom had no approved therapeutic option, according to the FDA, that is. At the time of the approval, SVB Leerink analyst Jeffrey Porges wrote in a research note that the free drug combination treatment for cystic fibrosis puts even more distance between Vertex and any potential competitor. So that's a little about the drug, but I'm sure Vertex would also want me to mention the support it has had from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in bringing Trikafta and its other cystic fibrosis drugs to the market. The firm has been working with the foundation for 21 years, accessing both research funding and using its clinical trial network. According to Vertex, this collaboration helped pave the way to bring this modulator to people with cystic fibrosis. Thank you very much.